Hey everybody, it's Scott and welcome to this week's episode of Strength and Health TV. In this week's episode I want to talk about one of the books that I found a lot of inspiration in and really enjoy reading and rereading and referring to periodically. I want to make sure in some of these episodes that I get into talking about some of the books that I read, or maybe some of the podcasts that I listen to, or some things that I use to further my education, because I feel that none of us have all the answers, and that if we're going to be good at whatever it is we're doing, whether it's training or whether we're in the training business, the health and fitness business, the strength and conditioning industry, whatever it is that you do, I feel that to be the best and provide the best services, you've got to place huge emphasis on continuing education and constantly learning, constantly evolving. That doesn't mean that you take what it is you're doing. If you're like me and you're a trainer, you don't just change every single day because you read something that maybe contradicts something that you're doing, or you see something that you think might be better, but rather as you go throughout your career, that you have kind of your foundation, your base ideas on programming, or your base ideas on training, and that as you learn, you might try something new and discard something that doesn't work, or you might try something new and find that that's really effective. So really over time, your system's evolving, and it's constantly improving to meet the needs of yourself or the people that you work with, but that core foundation is always there. So you're never just discarding something and then bringing in something new, but you're always just trying to add and to build onto what you know. You never want to get stuck doing the same thing over again, or just following the same thing blindly without ever trying to make it better or find ways to make it better. That's how you become stale and stagnant in what you're doing. So it's always important to keep an open mind, to study things, to learn things, to read things, and to always try to get better and to challenge yourself and your colleagues to get better as well. So I'm a big fan of books. I like reading books. I like to write. I'm a big fan of literacy in general. And I've got a huge library here at my training center with many books in the field of health, fitness, strength and conditioning, and other types of personal development as well. The book that I want to talk about today is something that I got a while ago, and it's actually a reprint of a book. The name of the book is The Way to Live in Health and Physical Fitness, and it was written by George Hackenschmidt. This is the cover of the reprint of the book that I got. Now, this book was originally published in, I think it was 1941. And a while back, I think somewhere around 2005 or 2007, somebody in the strength training industry, a guy by the name of Zach Evanish, went ahead and reprinted this book, and he added a foreword to it as well as his own personal bio. I know Zach believes in a lot of these training methods and stuff, and he paralleled a lot, of what he does or what he believes in as far as training goes in the book as well. So there's a pretty cool intro in there by him, and then it gets into the book, The Way to Live in Health and Physical Fitness. Now, Hackenschmidt was also nicknamed the Russian Lion. He was he was born in 1877, July of 1877, and he died in February of 1968. So he's often referred to as one of the turn-of-the-century physical culturists. He was a strongman, a professional wrestler, a writer, and a philosopher, and he wrote many books, among them The Way to Live in Health and Physical Fitness, which is what I have here today and the one that I wanted to talk about. One of the things that I really love about this book is early on in it, Hackenschmidt makes the comment that health can never be divorced from strength. So he brings up a really important point here, and I think this is where we're kind of getting it wrong nowadays as the field of strength and fitness and things have started to progress. We're seeing a lot more specialization. You're either a bodybuilder, you're a weightlifter, you're a powerlifter, you're a strongman, and these sports are getting taken to the extremes. And I think that's where we have to look at, what the involvement is. Are we an actual athlete competing in the sport? Are we a hobbyist? What are our goals? I will never dispute the fact that if you want to be the best from an athletic standpoint, you have got to specialize. If you want to be, the best powerlifter on the planet, you have got to go 100% full bore into that sport, do everything you can to get stronger, to compete at the highest levels. I mean, it has to be in all your focus has to go into being the best, just like any other form of athletics. Oftentimes, though, when we get that into a competitive sport or a competitive endeavor, health starts to kind of take a back seat as the main focus becomes on performance. And that's, again, I'm not going to dispute that. I get it. And for those people who have something at stake or they want to compete athletically and subject themselves to those trials, you've got to do everything that you can do in your power to be the best in your given sport. I'm not going to dispute that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about and I hate using this term, but for the average person or for the person who just wants to be strong, to be healthy, to have a high quality life, I think strength is an important part of that, and that it is absolutely essential for health. So I love the way that Hackenschmidt makes that comment. Again, health can never be divorced from strength. So that was one of the first things that jumped out at me early on in the book, and just the more I got into it, you kind of see that echoed throughout the pages of the book, because he gets into the book is divided into different sections on training, on the different training routines and exercises that he recommends. He talks about various health practices. He talks about nutrition and things like that. But when he talks about it, it's all, and I hate using this word, everything, it's all synergistic, okay? I hate the word synergy, but it really is. Everything is kind of woven in with each other. It's not just about the physical training, but he talks about the importance of the development of the physical body, bringing a mindful approach to training, to nutrition, the importance of rest and recovery, the importance of just developing the entirety of the person and not just the muscles or sinews, as he likes to say. So what I did is I just made some notes here, and I'll just kind of highlight some things that I think are really important, and hopefully you'll try to find the book. I think if you can't find this reprint version, I got it from Elite Fitness Systems at elitefts.com. I don't know if it's still in their store under their books. It may or it may not be. Like I said, this was a long time ago. But I think you can find a lot of these books on the Sandow site. Don't quote me on this. I think it's sandow.co.uk or something like that. I'll try to find the link and I'll put it in the notes below this video if I can. But if you just Google The Way to Live in Health and Physical Fitness by George Hackenschmidt, you should be able to find a copy online or something like that you can read, and it's well worth the effort to trying to grab a copy of it. One of the things that he talks about in regards to strength is that in order to become truly strong, you've got to have strong willpower. He says this is first and foremost, that you must have faith in your ability to become strong. So before you even pick up a barbell or a weight for the first time, you've got to have a strong willpower, and it has to be unwavering. You've got to believe in your ability to get strong. And I think that's awesome because he talks about the importance of governing your thoughts. And he says, without concentration of thought, you're courting failure. And that's a pretty powerful statement, but he just, it just kind of reiterates that you've got to have that positive mental attitude. PMA is a lot of the hardcore people like to call it, but it's really important in everything that we do, but to bring that into training as well. If you don't believe that you can become strong, you never will. When the weights start to get heavy, you'll never be able to lift them. You'll never be able to push yourself. You'll never be able to create the environment that your body needs to adapt and get stronger. So he says it's important to concentrate your mind upon the idea of acquiring health and strength. So again, first and foremost, having the mental attitude and just that unwavering belief that you can become strong. And that's his first lesson. He says before anything, you must have that. Some of the notes on training, which I thought were pretty cool. He's a big proponent of regularity. Even so much as doing the same things at the same time of day, so that your body gets in a routine. It gets used to eating, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time. It gets used to training at the same time. Now I realize, especially in today's world, that's not always it's not always possible, and sometimes you have to do it just to do it. Of course, get it in when you can. But he is a big proponent of regularity. He's a big proponent of starting slow and progressing slowly. In fact, he recommends to the novice beginner, beginning with 15 minutes and increasing your workout duration for 5 minutes until you're training for a total of 30 minutes. He feels 30 minutes is sufficient, but he feels that there shouldn't be a lot of rest time. So he's not a big fan of sitting between exercise. He says to stay up, keep moving, to pace back and forth, to keep walking, to keep the body warm, to keep the muscles and joints loose, and to keep the blood circulating to help with regeneration of the tissue that you're consuming during training. So he believes in brief, more intense exercise. Concentration during exercise, again, he brings that recommendation of, as far as the mindfulness to training and bringing your mind into the exercise, as well as putting a lot of emphasis on proper breathing as well. He also likes to vary the exercises constantly and to focus on developing the whole of the body and not get stuck into doing the same few exercises over and over, but total development through varying the exercises. As a big proponent of the conjugate system, that's one of the things that is kind of reiterated in that system, that we vary our exercise selection for the lifts that we're trying to accomplish. He's definitely got a preference for barbells, particularly adjustable barbells. If you have to have a minimalist set of weights, an adjustable barbell is probably his biggest recommendation. So definitely a proponent of free weights, definitely a proponent of body weight exercise. He feels that it's important to train heavy, to train intensely, but do not run yourself into the ground. So don't overtrain and don't destroy yourself. And this is something that, in a different way, was kind of reiterated by one of my mentors, Louis Simmons of the Westside Barbell Club. He loves to quote the late Dr. Mel Siff, who's one of the authors of Super Training. I guess they were co-presenting at a conference or a workshop or something, I think in Vegas. And Louis talked about how Mel came running in late, jumped up in front of him on stage, and he said he made a comment, and that, in his words, with as smart as Mel was, this was one of the most profound things that he ever said was, you never train minimally, you never train maximally, you train optimally. So you want to make sure that you're leaving a little bit in the tank, that you're not running yourself into the ground, but that you are getting in there and doing the work as well. So don't train minimally, don't train maximally, you train optimally. And all credit goes to Louis Simmons for popularizing that quote from Dr. Siff. But I think that parallels Hackenschmidt's idea of training intensely but not running yourself into the ground. So he's a big proponent of training frequently and training intensely, but saving a little bit so that you're recovered, so that you're fresh, so that you're never just totally trashing your systems. In addition to the strength training and his approach, his mindfulness as far as training and things go, talk about some of the things he references, just basic health practices. He's a big fan of rest and wholesome sleep, somewhere right about that 7 to 9 hours a night, and I think he made some comments about how naps even are a good idea. So rest is very, very important. He's a big proponent of oxygen in breathing, and he keeps reiterating that it's important to breathe, and especially outside, getting fresh air and things like that. And one of his favorite things he didn't want to get into a debate in the book about different types of breathing exercises that he says a lot of the proponents of physical culture debate about. So one of the things that he liked to do was just get outside and run, and to force yourself to take in deep breaths, because if you're running hills, as he mentioned, it forces you to breathe in deeply. But he's a big fan of getting out into nature, getting out and getting fresh air and breathing, and keeps reiterating about the importance of oxygen to the body. One of the, some of the other practices is, self-massage, daily rubbing of the body, using coarse towels, toweling the body and things like that. And, I've come across a lot of practices like dry brushing, where you use a coarse brush to brush over the body. It's very invigorating. It promotes blood flow. It helps to slough off some, dry skin and dead skin cells and things like that. So that's similar to his rough, dry toweling that he talks about. Daily massage, daily rub down. One of the things that I like to do is I use various bamboo and wire brushes to tap and kind of beat my body. It's a form of it's kind of a health restorative massage. So he's a big fan of stuff like that. So various health practices in addition to the training. And then he talks a little bit about nutrition in here, and he's got some opinions which I found very interesting. Again, remember this book was written in the 1941, so the early 40s. One of the things he says, it's a mistake to eat a great deal. Excess is harmful, and we often hear this idea a lot when it comes to nutrition. Without regard to the type of food that you're eating, never eat until you're totally stuffed. I forgot what the name of the practice is. I think it was popularized in Okinawa or something like that. But to always leave, a little bit of room. Eat till you're almost full, but never full. Don't ever stuff yourself. Always be a little bit hungry, when you're eating. So never stuff yourself. Never eat to excess. He says that the purest natural food for human beings, in his recommendation, is uncooked food and nuts. He made a comment about how we come into this earth without frying pan and stove, and that just healthy, fresh, raw foods are most likely the best food for humans to consume. He goes on to further say that a mostly vegetarian diet. He talks a lot about eating strictly a vegetarian diet, eating meat and whatnot. He says in the book he's not against the consumption of meat. He knows many athletes who do quite well. He says he's come across many strong people who are strictly vegetarian and some that eat meat. But in his estimation, and even back then, he feels that people eat too much meat, and that a diet should be at least 3/4 vegetarian and 1/4 meat. He felt was a pretty good balance if you were going to eat meat, but he feels that you can be 100% vegetarian and be very strong, which we know is totally possible. And he said he did know of people who ate meat who were very strong, which we obviously know that that's possible as well. But he recommended that a diet consisting of 3/4 vegetables and 1/4 meat, that would be about optimal if you were going to be eating meat. He was against meat from unhealthy animals. I find this interesting because he refers to unhealthy animals as those kept in stables and pens. So that says to me farmed animals, and we know about the debates nowadays with things like factory farming and such, and the unsustainability of the organic and the free range farms and things like that. So I found that to be really interesting and drew some parallels to kind of what goes on in modern day food production. He says pure vegetables form the ideal human food, in his opinion. So again, he is a big proponent of eating a lot of vegetables. He does say to avoid eating an excess of meat, but with vegetable foods, you could more easily eat to excess because he feels that they aren't as hard on the body from a digestive standpoint. So I thought that was pretty cool, especially myself being a vegan. I always like when I see strong people saying to eat more vegetables. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But again, these are just some of the points that I kind of jumped out at me. I just made some notes as I was reviewing the book again. He finishes like I said, the book is divided into sections about training, nutrition, healthy lifestyle practices, and then he offers a lot of opinions and quotes some other people from the physical culture era, I guess you could say. And then he finishes with his life story. So he talks about how he gets into wrestling, into training, his views on fitness and kind of his development over the years as well. And that's where it wraps up. And I thought it was kind of cool, and I'll go ahead and end this episode with this quote. But, when you look at these old school, physical culturists and stuff like that, when they feel the development, holistic development is the most important aspect, developing every part of the human being, the intellect, the body, it's more of a holistic approach to development. I thought this was really kind of interesting in how he ended the story of his life section. He said, "When did I last hold a championship?" And I love his response to this. "When I entered for and won the championship tournaments in Vienna, Berlin, and Paris in the year 1901. The motive that actuated me was the desire to prove myself a greater wrestler than all the famous exponents of the science who were gathered together at those places. That I won the title of champion at the same time was purely a side issue. Throughout my whole career, I have never bothered as to whether I was a champion or not a champion. The only title I have desired to be known by is simply my name, George Hackenschmidt." And I thought that was just such a cool quote to end his book with, and to kind of end this podcast or this video blog with. Too many people get wrapped up in titles. Too many people get wrapped up in superficial things. And I think, one of the themes going back to this holistic development is that we focus on self-cultivation, self-development, and, like I said, the importance of strength being one, component in overall health. So I thought that was a really cool way to kind of end that he's not attached to, titles. He's not attached to, being a champion in his sport, but everything that he did kind of went into building who was George Hackenschmidt, so that's all he ever needed to be known by. So I thought that was pretty cool and showed that he was humble, and it showed a little bit of humility there, regardless of his amazing accomplishments. So I thought that was a pretty cool place for him to wrap up. I think that's a cool place for me to wrap up. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, if you can get your hands on a copy of The Way to Live in Health and Physical Fitness by George Hackenschmidt, definitely recommend it. There's other great books by Saxon, Sandow, some of the great names in physical culture, Jowett, so many great books that you can find online. So definitely, hopefully getting your hands on this will spur you to look into some of the other titles, because I think what you'll find is that a lot of the stuff they were doing back then really isn't a whole lot different from the things that we do today. Terminology is a little bit different, but for the most part, the basics work as far as strength and exercise goes, and I just love the approach to being more holistic with your development. And the way that they did it was to not just focus on the development of the physical body, but to bring the mind in, the breathing, the physical development, the nutrition, everything, the way they've all worked together to promote optimal development. So again, hopefully you like this episode. Hopefully it spurs you to check out some of the old physical culturists and some of the awesome writings that they did. And until next week, as always, stay strong, stay healthy.